Morning, everyone. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square, back with you again. Joining me for our weekly chat on Tuesday mornings about whatever is going on in the world is Edwin Eisendrath, who you also know from his show on Lincoln Square, It's the Democracy, Stupid. You can catch that Friday afternoons. Edwin, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Susan. It is it's a grim day.
It is. We started on Easter Sunday with Trump threatening war crimes and dropping the F-bomb. Open the fucking street, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Now he's claiming by this evening to destroy the entire civilization of Iran. Edwin, I don't really even know what to say at this point. I mean, these are extremely scary times that we're living in.
I'm heartbroken and sad about this. He's a madman. And I went and I tried to do some homework and figure out who else in history has contemplated anything like this, has thought this was a good idea. And it turns out that Ahmadinejad, I'm going to not pronounce this right, Ahmadinejad, who was the prime minister of Iran, did say Israel needs to be erased from the map. But notwithstanding their efforts, they didn't have the means to achieve it. The Nazis did succeed, right? They did. While Jews survived, the entire Yiddish culture of Europe was destroyed, gone from the planet forever. I mean, and Rome did the same thing to Israel in the ancient world, taking temple culture, gone. The Spanish destroyed the Aztec and Inca cultures, destroyed them, gone. And America destroyed a whole lot of Native American culture, destroyed and gone. And Donald Trump wants to join that august group. He wants to be one of history's most destructive, terrible, one of these names that echo through history: Pol Pot, Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump. It's a great crowd he wants to be part of, right? Really a great crowd he wants to be part of. And this is, maybe part of him says, I hope they make a deal tonight, but at 8:00 Eastern time tonight, we are going to find out whether our country, our young women and men, and and everybody's tax dollars are used for one of the greatest crimes in history, or not. And the fact that we have to be at this place is a sign of the enormous moral failings of Donald Trump, the MAGA crowd that he has led, and frankly of the Americans that put him there, and those cowards in Congress who have allowed this to go on. It is unacceptable. It should be unacceptable to every single American. It is, as FDR said, this will be a date that will live in infamy. Only we are the horror here.
Edwin, I can't help but think about all of the coverage over the years of Donald Trump, dating back to his first administration, where there were these ongoing debates in Politico and a lot of those publications. Should we take Donald Trump seriously? Do we take him literally? And when it comes to life and death situations like this war of choice, you realize how shallow and irrelevant those conversations are. And I can't help but think the way that we often cover elections in this country does us such a disservice, because when it comes down to it, the president is not someone that you should want to have a beer with, or you might think his tweets are funny. This is somebody who has control of our nuclear arsenal. This is someone who can, as this president did, threaten to destroy the civilization of another country. And this is a pretty important decision to be made. It's not like deciding who wins American Idol. And I think that going forward, we really need to demand more from our mainstream media, and that politics is not a game, and it really should not be covered as such, because you can see the end result of a president who has not been taken particularly seriously by a huge chunk of the chattering class, and now thinks that he can rain destruction upon the world.
There's a lot of blame to go around for sure. The media did not do its job, but I don't blame the media so much. I mean, if you wanted to know the truth, you could find it. We were all lazy. The country, things were good. I mean, there were troubles, and we decided we wanted to fix those troubles, but we didn't think hard about how to fix them. Donald Trump was the loudest voice saying everything's broken, so people stood behind him. Everything was broken, but he's broken it more, aligned his own pockets, wrecked good chunks of the world, wants to be amongst the most evil people who ever lived, because that's somehow the more pain you inflict on the world, the better you are. And look, destroying a civilization is not fighting an enemy nation of Iran. The civilizations of the world are the patchwork of all humanity, right? Everyone on the planet will be poorer, weaker. We will have lost something that we can never retrieve if Persian civilization is wiped off the map. It's an unthinkable thought that only a megalomaniac madman would utter out loud. I mean, if Congress had any balls, they would throw him out today, impeach him before 8 o'clock tonight, because this is not a risk the country should take. They should just meet in session and say, you do not belong in this Oval Office. You do not belong with your hands on nuclear codes. You cannot be trusted. And that's just this issue. I mean, my God, what he's done to our country in just a year is phenomenally terrible. This is the worst human being could possibly be in the Oval Office. And so you're absolutely right. The press hasn't captured that. Aaron Rupar has captured that. If you watch, he's taken the time to actually show us what a madman this guy is, right? But the sane washing that's going on, people who try and figure out what's normal in his 3-hour rants and put it out there. He's unfit. He's morally unfit. I mean, ask Marjorie Taylor Greene, for God's sake. He's, morally unfit for the job. They shouldn't have it.
Yeah. Yeah, in those press conferences, when you're trying to find some sort of a coherent thread, you're missing the point. And I feel like Aaron Rupar's reporting really captures what it's like to listen to Trump, because he does it in real time, where he will very admirably sit there, subject himself to watching Trump, and he will painstakingly transcribe what he says, and you can see in real time him contradicting each other, statements about Iran one after another, and do that on any host of issues. You can see Trump fumble around and not sound coherent, as opposed to if you read the New York Times afterwards, you will have the sense that this is somebody who you might not agree with, but has all his marbles and has some sort of a coherent worldview. When you listen to him ramble for 3 hours, it's very clear
he's a madman.
He is, and the stakes have never been higher. And we thought this during the COVID pandemic, and eventually more than 1 million Americans lost their lives, and many of whom did not have to, because it was after the initial onset of this horrible disease, and he was the one who was in charge during that time. We got a glimpse about how little he valued human life now, but now that he has become utterly obsessed with invading other countries and showing his dominance in that way, you cannot turn away from the fact of how serious this is, not just for Iran, not just for the Middle East, but for the entire world. And what really frightens me is when I read reporting like I did this morning in Politico, and apparently Trump is the most bloodthirsty voice in the room. And he has the ultimate power, right? I mean, we know that certainly you can't count on Pete Hegseth or Marco Rubio to rein him in, but the fact that it's the president who is looking for this, annihilation option should really scare us all. And it's an utter failure. You are absolutely correct, by Congress, by his cabinet, not to step in at this point.
Before the deadline tonight, they should do it. Look, he is both unprepared and unable to learn. And let's just use the example of our country. He sends ICE into our cities, mine and Minneapolis, right, with a target list, but also with, we're going to terrorize the population. A target list isn't a strategy, didn't do anything. And the idea that he's going to terrorize a population into backing down is just, he's now got two examples in America. Well, LA too. And when he's done it, he came here, we chased him out. He went to Minneapolis, they killed people in Minneapolis, and still they got chased out, right? So what makes him think the rest of the world's any different? You come in with a target list and you say, I'm going to terrorize people and I'm going to throw anybody I want into jail. They can disappear into Dilley, Texas, and no one will know, the Dilley Detention Center, this concentration camp I built, no one will even know they're there. He doesn't work here. It isn't going to work anywhere in the world. He has got coercion is the only thing he knows. He's a mobster, but he's an insane mobster and dangerous. And he's not, as he said, he in this, sort of famous interview with the New York Times, I have no constraints except my own moral compass. Well, we know he doesn't have that, right? So he has no constraints. Congress has said none. The courts have lower courts have surely tried, but he has violated court orders left and right. Fired Pam Bondi because she didn't violate enough court orders, I guess. Didn't manage to throw people in jail over the objection of courts. So absolutely, today, Congress, do your job and take this weapon out of his hands before he does something that America will never recover from, that the world will never recover from.
Edwin, if the president makes good on his threat and bombs start raining down on Tehran fast and furious, where are we when we all wake up tomorrow morning? What is the state of the world?
Well, first, Susan, he cannot do what he said he was going to do. He cannot destroy their civilization without using nuclear weapons. And it is unthinkable that he would use nuclear weapons. But, we've learned long enough to know that unthinkable is, he'd like us to think he'll use them. He would. Today, I still don't believe he will. So what would he do? He will make it so that people, he will want to turn Iran into Gaza, right? A place where 1 million people are struggling to make any life at all, just to get it to the next day, amidst rubble. And there are 92 million people in Iran, and he wants to do it there. It's an unparalleled level of destruction in human history. It ranks up there with the horrors of World War II. So tomorrow, if we wake up to that, well, I don't think I'm going to go to sleep until I know, but I will be sick, just sick. We will not be able, America will be the pariah nation in the world. You can expect coalitions to form around countries that, forget democracy, but countries that at least you can predict, like China. America will be weaker. America will be isolated. Americans will be heartbroken. And God help me, I am a man of peace. But if somebody dances by my house cheering this action, all bets are off. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible thing that no decent nation should ever utter out loud, let alone contemplate, let alone tee up the plans so that they are ready, so that all you have standing between us and permanent disaster is the whims of this madman.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know that if Trump were to use the nuclear option, obviously nuclear weapons don't know borders, and that would be game over for the Middle East writ large. And he has many allies in the Middle East. MBS is one of his great friends. Certainly, that's not a scenario that some of his allies in the region would want. Whether or not he would listen to them at this point is, of course,
I don't know, Susan. I don't know what his allies want. The Sunni Shia conflict is the one that's characterized that region for decades and decades and decades. And, originally, way back when, Iran sought to create these militias, not so much to harass Israel, although that's what everybody thinks, but
right.
because there were Shia minority populations in these countries that were being marginalized
Right.
by the Sunni majorities, and then they fought back in ways that the rest of us call terrorism, and with good reason, and that just exacerbated this problem. But so would MBS, who leads the biggest Sunni kingdom, be happy if the Shia power in the world were massively diminished? Well, I don't think he'd say it out loud in quite that way, but it's hard to know what he's telling Trump in private.
No, clearly he wants a decapitated Iran, a weakened Iran. That's been his agenda, and as well as other allies in the Middle East, like at the UAE. But nuclear war, there's a reason why you call it mutually assured destruction. I mean, certainly that would have enormous implications in countries in the region with, the fallout spreading and with the infrastructure of Iran being decimated. That,
I can't believe we'll go there. I just can't believe it.
I know.
Which means that
when honestly, before Easter, I really wouldn't have had this discussion with you, because as much of a madman as Trump is, there were the ideas that we're still dealing with conventional war. But I mean, Donald Trump is clearly amping up this threat, and we know that there don't seem to be any constraints on him in this administration.
Pete Hegseth and Dan Kane, the Army Chief of Staff, were meant to have a press conference, and they canceled it. And I have been wondering, why did they cancel it? And maybe there is serious dissension between the military side and the civilian side in the defense, in the Department of Defense. Remember that, Donald. That's what it legally is, not war.
We can hope so. The fact that my Gen Z son, he's 22, asked me the other day, so is this what it was like to grow up in the Cold War? That's a conversation I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah, no, it isn't really.
It's not.
Yeah. I mean, there are aspects of it, but that Cold War isn't the one that's going on in the Middle East. That may be more US-China talk in some ways. But
no, I just think it was the first time that he has really had to seriously contemplate a nuclear war. And that, of course, is something that those of us who are older, that was a threat lurking in the background that we thought of quite often.
Yeah. Well, for years and years, the number of people who have been killed in conflicts has gone down on the planet. And a lot of that is due to American leadership around the world when we led in ways that made the world safer and more prosperous. Then Donald Trump has a winner take all. Like, we're going to take everything. We're going to take their oil. We're going to take the oil from Israel. We're going to take oil from the Middle East. We are going to take off the table anything that isn't oil, because we have comparatively more oil than, and China's doing better in renewables. So we're going to try and take that off the table. Just sort of shocking stuff that has led to a much more violent world, right? Our leadership has not ended the war in Ukraine, which is I think the most deadly, maybe more deadly than Somalia. It's hard to know, or Sudan, I'm sorry, where the most killing is. But and now we are promising to rain death and destruction on a country that really, was a strategic threat to Israel, zero threat to the United States, really. Um,
A country where we had a nuclear pact with them signed by President Obama that, by all accounts was working, that he tore up in his first administration, thus creating, this is a Trump-made problem.
As is the problem in the Straits of Hormuz, which was open to shipping the day before Trump decided to launch this war.
Right. And
what a fool. What a terrible fool.
It's not $4 a gallon here either.
Right. So other than the stain of this war and the moral turpitude of the people who are talking the way they're talking, and God help us if they actually carry it out. The wisdom of this war for America, for us being better off, well, there isn't any. I mean, we're not better off. The prices of everything are going up. We are still a planet that relies a lot on what comes through that strait, oil and gas in particular, but fertilizers. I mean, God help the farmers.
Between tariffs and this.
And then the tariff policy, right? Terrible. But the war itself, he'd already weakened our economy with tariffs. Mm-hmm. He'd already weakened our social fabric with tariffs because it made working men and women pay a whole lot more taxes, and made most of America poorer while his rich friends got richer. And the corruption, people are sick of it. We now know a year later that the DOGE efforts didn't make our government more efficient, but it did break parts of it so that we can't deliver the services that we want to deliver to our country. The Forestry Service is about to be decimated, just in time for a forest fire season that'll be brutal this year because of what we've done to the climate. So everything about this administration is destructive to us. And he'll get up there and say to children, did you know Joe Biden used an auto pen? I mean, this is like they're rolling Easter eggs, and he's like, oh, you know what? I'll sign your Easter egg card. My signature's worth a lot. Joe Biden used an auto pen.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this madman in the face of all we're facing. This is our president.
And last week during his primetime address, he also told us that the government just can't do things like healthcare. They can't provide Medicare for people. The states are going to have to take care of Medicare and daycare because he has wars to wage, which again is a fascinating message to send to people.
It's the message that kings have sent forever. Yeah. I have my standing army. I will use it. I will fill my pockets and the pockets of my friends. I will give military honors to those who I like and demote those who I don't. In this administration, that means women and people of color get demoted while everybody else who's incompetent can look forward to money in their pocket and a raise. But look, we are going into this war with a military establishment that they decapitated. Mm-hmm. Right? They just fired the Army Chief of Staff, for God's sake, right before this, mm-hmm. for the crime of refusing to demote Black soldiers who were up for promotion.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget what they've done to veterans services as well. The service members who are being sent into harm's way, what they will face from our healthcare system and the benefits that have been decimated.
Veterans foreclosures on their homes are yes. up at an all-time high because of this administration. Yeah. Right? They don't care about anybody or anything. No. But the political party that wants to stay in power by rallying behind him had better look itself in the mirror, because the only thing we can say about them is they are evil. They are supporting what is as evil as anything on the planet. This attack on Americans, whether they are veterans or people who don't look like Pete Hegseth, or the institutions of the democracy that they swore to uphold, or now their globalist warmongering and threats to destroy whole civilizations. These are mad. This is mad. It's insane. It's evil. And those who support it, this is their day of reckoning, Susan. Not Trump's. Trump's will come, but this is their day of reckoning. If they are supporting this man at 8 o'clock tonight and he commits this massive crime, then we're going to have a very different kind of politics.
I want to talk just a little bit about an evil that's right here at home, thanks to the Trump administration. It was announced that a new ICE center will be opening at Fort Bliss, which is an active U.S. military base, but it was once a Japanese internment camp during World War II. We talked a little bit about this, Edwin, not this specific site, but what the Trump administration is doing with these detention centers. And I mentioned that I have been back to the Manzanar internment camp that's now a national monument in California. It lies in probably one of the more inhospitable places on Earth. It's sandwiched between Death Valley, the lowest place on Earth, and then the highest mountains in the continental US, Mount Whitney and the Eastern Sierras. So literally there was no escape from here. It's a pretty powerful symbol. And now we quite literally are doing our best to relive some of the worst days of our history under Donald Trump. And that's a pretty sobering thought.
Yeah, last Friday, my guest on the show that I do with Lincoln Square was Andrea Pitzer, who's done such good work on the history of concentration camps around the world, and locates our current effort squarely in that line of history. Look, Americans know this for what it is and have been fighting all over the country to stop ICE from getting more of these facilities. One of the reasons why they feel like they have to build in these military bases is that they're having trouble getting other sites, right? Because Americans are saying no. Americans are saying, thank God, Americans are saying no. Look, the big, beautiful bill, the one accomplishment of Speaker Johnson and his cabinet, funded detention facilities, a string of gulags in America to house 100,000 people a day. 100,000. Just think about that. That's what they paid for in that bill. Now they can't spend the money because Americans are stopping them, brilliantly stopping them, using unbelievably fun and interesting tactics to stop them. Right? Like, oh, wait a minute, we don't have the sewers for this facility. So they're going to put them on military bases. They're going to put, they're determined to use these facilities but imagine taking 100,000 people a day, putting them in these camps where there is no account. We already know in the camps they have that people are dying, that we know there's sexual abuse going on.
Yes.
We know that oversight is being, I want to say they don't allow it. They're forced sometimes, but it's Potemkin time when they do. They delay it until they can gussy things up long enough for a congressman to come in and then leave. But we know from good reporting and from the people who've survived what those conditions are like. They are appalling, absolutely appalling. We also know that people get in those camps who should never be there, who don't have, they pick people off the street, put them in the camps, and the courts are overrun with habeas petitions of people saying, I don't belong there, get me out of here. I was picked up, I shouldn't be here. So the Justice Department isn't going after criminals in America anymore. They're not going after organized crime anymore. They're not doing anything to protect us from the drug trade anymore. They're not doing anything to protect us from cyber crimes anymore. They're not doing just to protect us from international crimes in America anymore. They're spending all their time going to court saying, Judge, I really don't know why Susan's in jail. I'll try and find out and I'll get back to you. And that's how they're spending their time, because they're trying to keep up with their rogue and criminal administration. And so, yes, they're going to rebuild a concentration camp where America already had its shameful concentration camps in World War II. And they're going to try and fill it with people, some who they have the legal right to pick up, but many who they do not. And that will include, because we know the president has an enemies list, and that enemies list is expanding. So you can bet it's going to include people who protest, people who object to this administration. It's already included them. It's included some journalists. I mean, this is absolutely this. And I don't think they will succeed in killing our democracy for it. I think it makes us stronger all over the country. Again, Americans are saying, we've had it with you. And I know Trump isn't done with us, but we are so done with him.
We are. But I have to say that these internment camps, these detention centers, these concentration camps are every bit of a stain on our country as the war crimes that Donald Trump may have already ordered in Iran, or that he is threatening, because these are the kind of acts that will not be forgotten long after Donald Trump leaves the White House.
Oh my God, Susan.
On our country, and this is what the world is seeing coming from us, when at not too long ago we claimed to be a beacon of hope for the rest of the world, for freedom, for democracy, and yet this is what we're doing on our soil, and look what we're threatening against other civilizations abroad.
Look, Donald Trump attacked an apartment building in my city with a Black Hawk helicopter. Right? This is who they are. There isn't any forgiving them for this. There isn't any forgetting from
against Ukraine.
Yes. There is no forgetting who they are. This is who they are. And Americans are finding out who they are slowly, because God knows their propaganda machine is big and powerful. And they've just okayed spending $300 and some million to protect their Senate majority. And, that all of that is going to be ugly lies, all of it. To scare people back into their fold. But I don't think they can do it. I think Americans are sick of them. So I want to say about our country, I am proud of the way we've stood up to this. This is the biggest threat to our society ever. It's the biggest threat to democracy since World War II. And this time, our government's on the wrong side and our people are on the right side, thank God. But it's a tough fight, and it's a fight. As Buckminster Fuller said about the future, it's a race between, I can't get his exact words, but it was like, total disaster and total panacea, and it won't be decided until the last minute.
Edwin, you wrote a little bit about the Artemis 2 mission in a piece that we ran on Easter Sunday. We've talked a little bit about this. It's pretty hard to end this conversation on a hopeful note, given the grave threats coming from the White House. But I do want to talk a little bit about this mission and what it symbolizes.
Right. So we have now sent humans a 250 million miles into space, 250,000 plus miles farther away from this planet than people have ever gone. There are 4 human beings in a bus, basically, who zipped around the moon, and now they're on their way home, and they have taken fabulous photos that are inspiring for the whole planet. They are gathering scientific data on not just the systems that they plan to use for return to the moon, but they're starting to look more closely at the dark side of the moon, what we can't see from here. And I hope that the development of the moon, which may be coming, is peaceful, right? Hopefully it'll happen in a new administration. But you look up at that capsule, and Susan, it's got 4 people in it. One of them's a woman, one's a black man. Of the 2 white men, one is Canadian. You can tell this is a crew that wasn't picked by Pete Hegseth. This is a crew that was picked because they are the best, right? There are lessons that America knows, but Donald Trump won't learn in that capsule. And again, as much as they try and break the human spirit, and they do every day try and break the human spirit, it is a remarkable thing. And so I mean, I think I wrote this contemplating this religious season we're in, right, with Passover and Easter, and all the reasons people look up. But this time when they look up, they also see 4 people gone where no one has ever gone, doing things to prepare us for a future that's bigger than our delicate planet. It's a remarkable achievement, a really remarkable achievement.
Yeah, it's the first manned mission outside of Earth's orbit since 1972, which happens to be the year my husband was born. So 53 years, 56 years, 54 years. That's a very long time. And you know, I think a little bit for me, I was not alive when we landed on the moon, but those were some of my favorite stories to ask my relatives. That was just such a staple of my childhood. And I sadly remember the old TV being wheeled into my 4th grade classroom in 1986 for the Challenger mission, which included Krista McAuliffe, who would have been the first teacher into space, and it, you know, ended in tragedy. That's definitely one of my formative memories. But space exploration is something, again, that my children don't have that firsthand experience with, because there have been so many cuts to NASA. You know, there haven't been these manned missions with the frequency that past generations got to see. But they really symbolize that there is something greater than ourselves out there, you know, and it's worth being a little contemplative and waxing a little poetic, because God knows there's a lot of ugliness in the world. But you know, Trump's presidency is not an aspirational one, but this is, you know, he never tells us to look beyond our own needs, beyond our own borders. He doesn't talk about the need for a greater humanity. He's the antithesis of all that, but we don't have to be. And there are still things that we can achieve for the greater good. And so I think it's important for us to go ahead and savor a few of those moments, because we know that his presidency has been dedicated to trying to damage all of that.
I agree with all of that. I'm older than you. I do remember landing on the moon. And I was I taught school for many years, and I was a student teacher with young kids when the Challenger blew up, and it was a terrible, very sad day for everybody. That was a terrible accident and heartbreaking. If what Donald Trump promises to tonight happen, it is not an accident.
No,
it is not an accident. Instead of aspiring to great things and sometimes falling short, he will have aspired to the very, very worst things. You know, he's a monster. And again, if Congress had, I think I said any balls earlier, I mean it, but if they had a backbone, if they had a moral compass, if they had anything, they would take the power of that destruction out of his hands before his deadline tonight. Yep.
Well, Edwin, I always appreciate these conversations.
Susan, let me tell you about Friday. Yes? My guest Friday is the chief economist at the Economist Intelligence Unit, a brilliant woman named Constance Hunter. The EIU puts out a democracy index. It's one of the most thorough, important measures of democracy around the world. Theirs was due out in February, and it was delayed. It is coming out this week, and that's what she and I are going to talk about.
That's a conversation that you will not want to miss. That's a conversation that won't be taking place anywhere else. And we're very lucky to have you host that show with.
I'm very lucky she's going to come talk about it.
Yep.
Brilliant woman. Yep.
And of course, with us on Lincoln Square, we will be tracking the situation in Iran, and we will be here to bring you the absolute latest. Thank you again, Edwin.
Thanks, Susan.